everyone, welcome to the Parkscope Unprofessional Podcast Hour. Well, I don't know. It's been a crazy week already. I don't know what's going on. Joining me today is Alan. Alan, how are you doing?
I'm alright. How about you?
Can't complain. It's been just kind of nuts. Everything seems to be going a million miles an hour right now with the whole entire MSU thing and XFL today and just a bunch of... It just seems like all this crazy stuff's happening a million miles an hour.
Yeah, you're telling me about
day.
MSU.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that actually got like requisitions from NASCAR back in the day.
Yeah. So
like
that's...
I recognized the name before it became famous because it's a long story.
Yeah, that's that's a whole terrible thing. And by thing, I don't mean what the trustee said by thing. I mean, it's a terrible tragedy and a complete just failure of a system. But anyways, enough slagging.
Yeah, it's bad. It's negative.
This is a theme park podcast, but
yes.
Also joining us is Mr. Andrew Hyde. How are you doing, Andrew?
Good. I'm trying to follow up. I can't follow up that MSU talk with like a joke. I feel
no bummers.
My intro there, you kind of like didn't set me up that well.
Sorry,
but,
my bad. I feel bad.
Yeah,
let's try serving it up again.
XFL.
Yeah, XFL. Okay,
yeah. So, what do you think about the XFL, Andrew?
I think it's crazy. I think it came out of left field, and I'm just excited to see it come back because I think like last time everyone kind of just thought it was a joke, and without social media, like I'm really glad to see it come back in the social media era because I think that it's just going to make it 10 times funnier.
Well, I mean, it's also somewhat of a joke right now, so it's not like it's not a joke.
Yeah.
Now. I watched the intro video a little bit, and I watched a little bit of the 30 for 30 again before recording the podcast, and the first thing that came to my mind was basically Vince McMahon in like September watched 30 for 30 again and just Googled NFL complaints and just built his whole entire pitch video based on that. Like, they're the opposite of everything they were to begin with, like in 2000, 2001, and now they're just trying to co-op a bunch of all the crazy stuff that's going on with gambling and protests and all sorts of stuff like that by him trying to say, no, we're going to be different, and who knows? It just sounds sort of like they're throwing everything at the wall right now. It doesn't sound any better than last time. Alan, what are your thoughts real quick?
So actually, this had been actually revealed by a guy that I know from back in the day when I used to post on Death Valley Driver in the mixed martial arts forums. They don't really care about wrestling that much. But David Bixenspan, fan, who forever will be a narc to me and my friends. But he is actually apparently like a real journalist now, and he broke this about a month ago. Vince McMahon had sold a ton of stock and was looking to restart the XFL. And we all laughed and thought there's no way this is possibly true. And then somebody called the WWE for comment, and they said, we don't have any comment. We refuse to acknowledge or deny the fact that we may be looking to a football league. So everyone was like, wait, what? Really? And apparently, as best I can tell, it's kind of like somebody had tweeted, like, this isn't your dad's football. And now it's become like, we've actually decided to create football specifically for your racist dad. Like, that's what this is. I don't know why anybody would actually watch it. The people that I've seen that have reacted positively on the internet towards it are the kind of people who are like, not politically of a similar mind to myself. And I think it's hilarious that people may actually sit down and spend hours of their day or week watching inferior, crappy football, sub-CFL level football to trigger the lips. So
hey, you're talking to a guy that lives in the Cleveland area who's I'm guessing you might be a Browns fan there, Joe, and I grew up in Detroit, so I'm guessing what the XFL actually puts talent-wise on the field is better than what I grew up watching in Detroit. So
Well, I mean, my football team is Liverpool Football Club, so that should tell you exactly where I stand on the Cleveland Browns. I've been to one game because someone gave me tickets, and that's basically about it. And it's background noise when I do cooking or cleaning on Sunday. So that's kind of my view on the NFL. Plus, I mean, I have college football. I mean, I have the Buckeyes, And then right after college football's done, I have college basketball. So I start watching the Flyers. I watch the Buckeyes. I watch a bunch of teams, A-10, Big Ten, stuff like that. So I just kind of like, that's kind of my sports watching time right there. So, yeah, I don't know. It's my general thing is like they're saying, hey, we're doing this 2 years in advance on like last time where we did it one. And I just did a real quick search. The MLS, they started planning that in 1988 for a 1994 debut. So, like, and they confirmed, like, I think it was 92 or 91 they confirmed everything. I forget exact times, but it was absolutely crazy. But anyway, that's the XFL. That's our XFL Minute. I hope that's a new segment we do. What's going on in the XFL
never
now.
actually come to fruition, let's be real.
Very likely.
We have 2 years to consider what we're going to do with the XFL, and then like in 6 months it'll be like, actually, that's a terrible idea, and that'll be the last we hear of it. So that's always a possibility. But we should have an XFL Minute anyways, just because why not?
We'll have an XFL Minute.
Exactly.
What's funny
Until the XFL Hall of Fame is built at Universal Studios Orlando, the next WWE Hall of Fame.
Great.
Long rumored.
God, thank God that never came to be. Talking about Universal Orlando, segue, perfect there, Alan. Brand new development coming to City Walk. It's been rumored for a while. We sort of knew about it on and off. But Voodoo Donuts, the Portland-based donut shop, is coming to Universal Orlando. They opened in Hollywood last year. They sell crazy donuts for a pretty decent price for a theme park. I think the donuts are ranging for anywhere from like $1.60 to like $2 or $2.10, and they're pretty good-sized donuts. They're in that kind of vein of the crafty donuts where they put crazy toppings and crazy shapes. They sell a baker's dozen. My personal favorite is the coffin, which is 39 donuts in a coffin, and it costs $139.
Yes. That's just everything there just sounds perfect.
Yes. So it's opening up in Element, the old Element shop, which is next to NBC Grill Brew. I think this is going to be a huge hit. I know there's a few people who are like, you can just get donuts inside the parks. I don't know why you'd get this. Well, I mean, the craft donuts. I mean, there's one called the Marshall Mathers that has a bunch of M&Ms on it. There's, there's just a bunch of crazy cool donuts. You can get them outside the park. They're going to be a real big hit when all the clubs close, all that stuff. And plus, I mentioned before, is that there's only, right now, 2 places in City Walk that are open for breakfast. So this would definitely be a good addition. So what are your guys' thoughts?
I love it. I think it's unique. I think it is. I think City Walk needs and should have. You look at like replacing Element, definitely a plus up. You can get that kind of stuff anywhere at the outlets at any mall you go to. But when I go on vacation, when I go places, I like to try unique things, try stuff that I can't get back at home. And I mean, unless for a small portion of the country, Voodoo Donuts is going to be something unique. Even if it's not the greatest donuts ever, because that's what I've seen some people like say on Twitter. Oh, they're really not that great. Well, they're still different. They're still unique. The names are funny and crazy enough that's what I want to see at City Walk.
They kind of have a punk aesthetic in a way, kind of like a thing to them that Universal has. Alan, what were we going to say? Sorry.
Yeah, I know like the people that actually live around Portland, and they're like, yeah, it's it's for the tourists. Like nobody that actually lives here goes there, and I get that, but it's like then it's perfect for Orlando, in which the only people that really go to places like Universal City Walk are going to be literal tourists or perma tourists that moved there and never actually see downtown kind of people. So I'm pumped. Sure, why not? Donuts. I'm good for it.
They're better than flat front shorts that are like camo or Van shoes or whatever they sell in the Element store. Is that what they sell in the Element store? Does anyone know what they sold in the Element store?
Yeah, it was like skateboard gear. Yeah, which is really weird because it wasn't too far off from what they sold at the store, which I don't know the name of, but I always cut through it to get to the park. Kind of the one there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's the thing. I think it was. Plus, you're in Florida. There's Ron John surf shops and surf shops everywhere. I don't think it was that that great of a thing there. No, I'm not going to Universal to buy a skateboard, but I'll go to Universal to buy a donut kind of thing as I'm walking into the park.
I think as far as like, what they've got for kind of quick service items like donuts, super good, hot dogs and stuff like that, like, I'm totally okay with that. They've done a good job. I feel like they're all more intriguing to me than eating at Earl of Sandwich, which I can get at the Detroit airport and which I've never liked anytime I ever get at the Detroit airport. So shout out to all the stuff that Universal got food-wise in City Walk.
Okay. So let's move on. Let's talk about some closures. So which one do you want to start on? The big one? I mean, they're all
big. It's been a year,
big.
Man. We're this off season's been one weird off season out.
Yeah,
they managed to just kill everything is what they're doing, which is unfortunate.
I mean, since September, since August, they've just been slashing and burning. So I mean, the one that's been rumored for a while, and the big one, is Curse of DarKastle at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. If you have not been on Curse of DarKastle, it is the cheesiest ride in the world, but it's also like the only Spider-Man or Transformers-like attraction in a regional theme park, I believe. Maybe besides the Justice League attractions. But
the Justice League attractions are kind of similar, but they're shooting rides, and this was not a shooting attraction, which was kind of nice because...
And what I also really liked about it is it was the original IP. So yeah, I mean Justice League. It's just it's similar to the movies and all that kind of stuff. So this was something that was completely unique and original to that park. And I think that to me that the ride system I don't think is as cool as it maybe once was because now you have the Justice Leagues and everything. But I think it was the unique storyline that really kind of made it.
And it was a big ride. I mean, this was not an insignificant attraction. It probably cost them 40, 50, 60 million when they built it. And to have this huge box, this huge ride, which, realistically, they're not going to be able to get any kind of ride system similar to that in that box for cheap ever again. To rip that out and replace it with event space, first of all, who can even say if it's really well suited for it? They're probably going to have to knock down a bunch of walls. And, for what? For a maze? I mean, it just seems like the worst possible use for that space. What it does is it screams that SeaWorld is burning money, which everybody knows by looking at the reports. Their attendance was flat in 2016 for the most part, and I think it's been pretty much down in 2017. They've been losing, their money per guest. They don't seem to really have a direction. I mean, closing stuff like DarKastle, they closed Gwazi years ago in Tampa, and Gwazi's just sitting there still years later. DarKastle, obviously now they're ripping that out.
And then they're also, if you saw on Twitter this week, they're also like the day before DarKastle closed, photos came out that they put scaffolding up inside the one gift shop at SeaWorld Orlando. And it's like, it looks like to hold the roof up. Like, come on, like that, if that doesn't scream, doesn't scream, hey, we're in some trouble here. I don't know what does. I mean, it could just be maintenance, but it just doesn't look good.
No, it looks terrible. And I think that, the fact is it seems like what they did at Busch Gardens was they looked at the balance sheet. They saw what the most expensive ride there was. And they said, you know what? Is this really drawing anybody specifically? Well, we'll just cut it. What could happen? And unfortunately, that's a ride that had a 42-inch height requirement. So they lost the most significant ride with a 42-inch height requirement in the park. There's no net gain of attraction from it because, they have a VR attraction that's going in this year, but that's a replacement already for a different ride.
Well, and you look at it and go, this is a park that's really trying to extend the seasons. Christmas Town's a big event there, and they're opening in mid-March. You're not going to have great weather every single day. They're open in March or April. Like having indoor rides, and I think that's my biggest problem with Busch Gardens Tampa is that they're missing indoor attractions. And I think Williamsburg, again, if you're trying to go there during Christmas Town, especially with Winterfest now opening up the road at Kings Dominion, how are you going to compete? I think it's the rides that you're going to compete with, and this would have been a perfect way. No matter what the weather condition is, you can open a ride because Alan, as me and you know, when we were at Kings Island a couple of weeks ago, weather can pretty much kill off a park. So I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we lucked out. The one kind of thing we got to do was the dark ride, and if you're going to, and I mean, just think if this was the exact same story, but we were in Williamsburg and we're passing through, decided to swing into Busch Gardens, and it was 20 degrees and snowing. Well, the one ride we could ride is now a walk-through meet and greet.
Yeah, or nothing, or like you know, a series of tents selling junk. I mean, it just doesn't appear to me to be a move that suggests that this is a company that has a lot of ideas going forward or a lot of, you know, innovative thinking. Like, this is the most conservative thing you could have possibly done with this space.
And I think what's a little worrisome here is, you know, everything we kind of heard over the last year is Busch Gardens Williamsburg's kind of the crown jewel. I mean, we all kind of think of it as the crown jewel of the parks, but it also, you know, on their quarterly earnings calls and stuff, they kept saying how attendance is through the roof there. That park's doing extremely well. Well, we're starting to see that, you know, things must be really bad if you're, you know, the park that's making you the most money is where you're trying to make some of the bigger cuts at.
And this also, you know, this is supposed to be more of a family park that appeals to more people. That's why it gets a higher attendance than places like King's Dominion. And when you start eliminating rides that are big, that attract families, you're going to have a tougher time being able to get those families to come back. You know, I get that people are like, well, it has lots of really great roller coasters and shows. And the thing is, there's a lot of parks that have really great roller coasters and shows. Like a lot of them, like Cedar Fair parks usually have pretty decent shows and big roller coasters. But, you know, they're not destination parks in the same way that Williamsburg is. And to see Williamsburg go in that direction, to me, is like the total wrong place to go. And if you look at everybody else in the industry and where they're going, that's not the way that Six Flags is going. Like, Six Flags is looking to build more indoor stuff. And that's the way Cedar Fair is going. And that's the way that Hershend may be going as well. So it just doesn't make any sense to me as a sort of visionary or intelligent or innovative idea. It just looks like a very conservative idea from somebody that's just trying to keep the lights on, rather than looking at something like DarKastle as a potential asset. Because, you know, like I've said all along, if you go in there, you get a new film, you know, you do a couple little things here and there to plus it up. You know, maybe you change some of the programming on the vehicles, and all of a sudden you've got a new ride that you can mark. And that's what Six Flags has been doing with their, you know, the rides that we have listed here as Scooby-Doo at Fiesta Texas, which they closed. There was another ride where in January they decided to announce that the ride was closed forever after it was already closed forever. And, you know, at least what they're saying there is we're going to build a more advanced dark ride. And so when you take your one super advanced dark ride and you replace it with absolutely nothing, you know, that to me suggests that you are not looking at the bigger picture, that you're just bumbling around trying to make ends meet. And, you know, when you're in that position when you're that conservative and just trying to cut rather than add in some way, like you're in trouble. You're going to be in real trouble because people are going to stop coming. That's just the bottom line.
And I think the footnote to the whole DarKastle conversation is you found like a week or so ago that the park president position was actually like posted on their job board.
Yeah, exactly. And nobody said, it's known that the park president has left, but nobody knows where they went to. Maybe they got promoted at Seas. You know, you think that they would have mentioned that.
My guess is, yeah, I think they would have mentioned it if he got promoted at Seas. I know there's been a lot of Six Flags shuffling lately, which I don't know if creates a few open spots. You know, I think the guy from Great Adventure went back to Magic Mountain. So I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, in a couple of weeks we found out this guy ended up at a Six Flags park. But I mean, to lose, you know, this guy was, by all accounts, like the rising star in the SeaWorld organization. Kind of, he's mid-30s and president of Busch Gardens Williamsburg, and, you know, kind of going up the ranks fast. And if they did lose him, that's another big loss, you know.
Yeah, and Cedar Fair is going to be having some shifting around too because of Ouimet stepping down and people moving up the ladder. So, yeah. You know, both Six Flags and Cedar Fair, and to even a lesser extent, some of the other companies. I know the guy that was the GM at Great Adventure ended up taking over Apex Parks last year. So, you know, there's going to be opportunities probably there. There's probably opportunities with Parque Reunidos if, you know, they're hiring. Merlin is going to be looking for somebody to run
Legoland.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people that are going to be out there There's also the new park, if it ever actually does open.
American Dream.
American Dream. Yeah. So, there's another option for somebody that they're going to look for and be like, well, we want to be a destination park. We need somebody that has, knowledge of how to run a park that's open 9 to 12 months a year. Who's out there? Oh, this guy is. Legoland to me seems like another obvious place where he might have shown up too. So there's all of those. And, like you said, if he leaves, it's another indictment of the SeaWorld organization as it currently stands. I didn't want Joel Manby to fail. I thought that he was a good pick because of his experience with Herschend. But, as we're looking at Herschend right now, Herschend's doing great. They're still doing gangbusters. And SeaWorld is not doing any better now than they were 2-3 years ago. And you have to wonder as to whether or not Manby was actually the right pick or if he was just kind of like, a good manager, but nobody that could really transform that company and take it to a different place that needed.
Yeah, or you wonder if at Herschend with it being a private company and the Herschend family still very much involved, maybe he was just more of a figurehead and they were actually pulling all the levers behind the scenes and making him look good.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's very much a possibility. Very much a possibility. Joe, anything else you want to add to the discussion there?
I think you guys covered a lot of that. I mean, it's just why did they spend money on upgrading that Europe in the sky, or Europe in the over the air, or whatever, to VR when they could have just thrown all that money at Curse of DarKastle for a 4K upgrade or something? And you have I just don't know. It's completely bonkers to me, and I see some people who are like saying, well, I mean, things close, and people are complaining about when Big Bad Wolf closed, and I'm like, yeah, but that was replaced by a coaster, and this is
replaced by nothing.
Yeah,
like an event space is not a thing that draws people to the park. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And the one guy who was responding to me on Inside Universal about it basically started talking about how everything in the park looked fine, and I'm like, You're missing my point that I was making, that this is a bad decision over the long run by saying, well, when I went, everything looked fine. I mean, that's not showing you the deeper cracks in the business system. It just shows you that they are maintaining what they have. So, I mean,
plus that kind of like personal, like, oh, well, when I went there, everything was this way. Like, I went to Blackpool in 2002. And everything at Blackpool was super awesome then. And if I look at the list of Blackpool attractions that exist now versus 2002, it's like, oh, Trauma Towers is gone. The monorail's gone. The Noah's Ark has been gutted. The Wild Mouse is gone. Space Invader's gone. Like, I start going through and there's like 15 attractions that I was able to go on back then that have all been ripped out and torn to shreds. It's not the same park anymore. And I can't sit there and say, like, my experience in 2002 is the experience that people have now. Or even like on an individual day. I say this about Michigan's Adventure all the time. Like, people say, oh, nobody goes to Michigan's Adventure. There's no reason for them to do anything to the park. And it's like, I don't know. I go to that park and it's slammed like almost all the time. And it obviously needs more capacity, but then it also needs people to actually work there, And then I find out these people haven't been there in like 10 or 15 years. And it's like, well, yeah, your opinion doesn't really matter anymore. Mm-hmm. That kind of like personal, like, well, it looked this way when I was there. Like, dude, you might have been there on a good day. You might have been there early in the season. You show up in mid-August, after some budget cutbacks and, a whole year's worth of wear and tear, and maybe stuff doesn't look so good anymore. But this was, like I said, this is just such a lazy, just bad move, just a bad move. And, not even the only ride to be like closed out of the blue in January, because who does, like, why are we doing this? Like, at least announce you're going to do it and then make money.
Or the best part of the announcement was like we're closing. Look at this video. Oh, by the way, who wants to help us name our new event space?
Yeah, and everybody just shit on it on Facebook.
Yeah, like they're like, hey, leave in the comments. Do you want it to be called Newcastle? Do you want it to be called this or this? I personally voted for Battle Clash the ride, but.
My vote was, this is bullshit.
But I was like, here's something where, like, I work in social media, digital marketing. Like, this is something I would have posted, maybe like disable the comments for or something, because it's just going to be everyone just. But instead, they made a post that encouraged response. Like, I would have never responded to this post, but they were like, hey, what name? So I'm like, well, I'm going to totally screw with them here and put a name that they should have named their last ride, but like, so like the one post where you probably shouldn't have tried to get people engaged, they were like, hey, tell us what you think.
What's great is when I typed in my response, Facebook thought I was angry. Like, they're like, oh, we see you're posting this. Do you want to directly contact Busch Gardens Williamsburg? As if I was like some like angry, parent or something that like was so pissed off at their trip that they just wrote like, this is bullshit or something. And oh boy, yeah,
But, I mean, like, what are you gonna do? Like, you're gonna email them now and be like screw you guys. Like, okay, great. Like, they're like, yeah, it's already in the shredder. Like, it's gone. Like, too bad. Like, honestly, I might still go to Busch Gardens this year, even though it's gone.
Yeah, I actually booked a trip that same day. I mean, I was on Twitter going, "This sucks. This is horrible. The park is going downhill." And I do think it takes away the uniqueness of the park. But then I found $100 round trip from Orlando to Richmond. I was like, I haven't been to Busch Gardens in a few years, so still going.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been there in forever. So at least maybe I get the chance to go there. And if Verbolten actually sucks, then I'll like crap all over it on the podcast. But
you haven't been on Verbolten?
No, I haven't been there. The last
neither have I. I mean, I haven't been since I lived in Richmond.
Oh, you guys gotta go there. I mean, not talk about the good things. I mean, I've heard some Griffin. Of the. If you've been on Sheikra, you've been on Griffin. If you've been
I haven't been on Sheikra, but I've been on Valraven though.
Yeah, and they're all the same. But Verbolten's actually pretty cool. I actually say Verbolten's probably one of the better rides there.
Yeah, I like Alpengeist. I like Verbolten. I have no interest whatsoever in the Skyrocket that they got, Tempesto. There's a lot. The thing is, a lot of those rides, like, I look at them and I'm like, I'm basically just gonna look at them and just laugh at how bad they are, like Mach Tower. Like,
yeah,
like whoever thought that that's like Technical Park built that or something, right? Like,
yeah, and
no, it was Moser. It was Moser. That's who it was.
And then when they went to go add it to Tampa, they're like, let's go with a more reputable manufacturer, Intamin, and that ride opened 6 months late. And if you didn't think they learned their lesson there, they're like, hey, let's build this huge water ride for Orlando. Let's use that same vendor that delivered our last ride with them super late, because that ride doesn't look like it's going to open anytime soon.
Oh God, yeah, I don't. Well, maybe they're not making payments. That's always a possibility too.
They got a discount.
It's kind of like why when people go on the Indiana Beach Facebook, this is always fun. Go on the Indiana Beach Facebook. When RV Morgan's, the last year that they opened the park before they sold it off to Apex, they had announced that they were going to build a wave pool, and everyone's like, "Oh, great, a wave pool's coming," and then they never even got a shovel out to start digging for it. Like, nothing ever happened. And then they sold the park and towards the end of the season. And people 2 years later are still like, hey, when is the wave pool going to open? And Apex is like, never. No wave pool. And they're like, what do you mean there's no, everyone's like, there's still people that are like, when's the wave pool coming? Like, no, there's no wave pool. There was never a wave pool. It was actually a lie. I'm sorry.
Incredible.
And that's because Morgan never paid any money to anybody. That's a great story, by the way. I'll briefly talk about that just because it's funny. So Indiana Beach, which is now kind of mediocre, but used to be great, sucked for a while because it was run by this shystery RV company. They had RV parks everywhere. And also they'd managed to license the NASCAR name, which tells you how valuable the NASCAR name is. That's attached to stuff like NASCAR Speed Park and Morgan Centers. Okay, things that get F's from the Better Business Bureau are the kind of things that have NASCAR's name on them. So Morgan immediately, as soon as they bought the park, they didn't actually have any money to purchase the park. They borrowed everything, and then they immediately were running into cash problems on their end. So they stopped paying all of their suppliers. So the ATMs ran out of cash, and then none of the vending machines in the park ever got refilled for 3 years.
And then wasn't there the maintenance workers stopped showing up to work and were like, hey, no one's checking the ride. There were some articles I remember where they were coming out and saying, hey, these rides are not safe anymore.
Yeah, they did that. At the end of the season, they would just shut all the power off in the park and just be like, okay, everyone got laid off, the GM and everybody. And they're like, oh, you can just collect unemployment. And then nobody came back the next year. They had to scramble to try and get some motley crew of people together that was complete garbage. There were like holes in roofs. Like I went into the Dog and Suds location there, and there was a hole in the roof, and they had just buckets everywhere collecting water. And then it was like you go to the desk, like going around all these buckets like filled with water, and they're like, "Hi, can I serve you?" It was the worst. It was hilariously bad, also tragic. Now it's better. Now you can actually get money from an ATM. You don't have to charge your credit card and receive like Indiana beach bucks, like corny bucks or whatever they had. But that was my brief aside. Maybe SeaWorld's getting to that point. If everyone starts going to SeaWorld and all of a sudden the ATMs don't have money in them, let us know so that we can tell you that you're going to a failing amusement park. Because that's usually the first sign is the ATMs run out of money and the Coke machines stop getting refilled.
There's a pro tip right there.
Pro tip. But, we briefly talked and wrote this stuff down beforehand because in January, you had the announcement of DarKastle closing, obviously, this last week. Scooby-Doo was announced to close a couple weeks ago. Blackpool announced that the Wild Mouse and Trauma Towers were getting torn down by showing a picture of the empty space that they used to occupy before anybody could complain that they were getting rid of classic attractions. And then
and the Wild Mouse is a wooden Wild Mouse in the vein of like the Roller Coaster Tycoon version, like for Americans.
Like that's the one that the Roller Coaster Tycoon people modeled after to create the Wild Mouse for that game, and it was freaking great.
Yeah, and it was a wooden one, so it's not like one of the steel ones you see everywhere.
Yeah, no, now there's 3 left. There's 1 in Sydney and 2 in Indonesia, because of course, East Java, great place. That's what I'm told. And then today, Island in the Sky is announced as being closed forever at Legoland. Real bummer. You've been there, right?
I was just there this past weekend, and I was actually looking around. I was like, "Hey, the ride's normally right here. Why don't I see it?" I guess just a couple days early and find out that it's closed for good. I rode a couple like when I first went there a long time ago. It was interesting. It always kind of felt unsafe, even though I know it wasn't.
It looks like it shouldn't work because it's a gigantic disc that everyone sits on that gets like levitated into the sky. And it was cool. I've been on that one. There's the one at Gardaland, which is also owned by Merlin. So hopefully that doesn't close this year also suddenly out of nowhere. And then there's the one at Efteling. And I think there might be one in Japan too. But they're very rare rides to begin with. And, I thought it was awesome. There's very few rides that look as cool as Island in the Sky did. And it sucks losing that one. That's a real bummer.
It was a cool view of the park too, because the park's a kind of interesting layout, kind of up on the hill overlooking the water.
Yeah, you get to see, it's a big lake and it's a public lake, so you get to see all the boaters out there. Get to see the gardens, which I guess just reopened recently too, which is good. Yeah,
but they were in really bad shape. Like I was actually pretty disappointed with the way they were, because they used to I remember when I first went to Legoland way back in the day. When it reopened, they were still in like the Cypress Garden shape of, very colorful and bright. And now, granted, it is winter here, but still, I mean, there was areas that was flooded. I did not see like one flower or anything planted in there. I mean, it was I was basically just walking through a woods when I saw that weird tree and walked out, but definitely not the gardens, definitely not a garden at all, which was pretty disappointing.
Now I'm like, I might be physically mad right now. Like I might be actually like DarKastle. It's like, okay, I can let that one go. Island in the Sky. Now I'm feeling a little tested. Like then you tell me the gardens have gone to hell, and it's just like if there was a pencil in my hand, I would have snapped it in half. I just would stare at the screen, and you wouldn't have heard me for the rest of the podcast.
Well, hopefully, I mean, it's just a case of maybe Florida winter, but I doubt it. The rest of the park looked fantastic, though. I will say that, but that was a little disappointing.
Yeah, that's upsetting. We'll leave it at that.
Oh boy.
So everybody sucks is what we're coming to. So let's talk about my articles.
Or do you want to talk about Kennywood and Elite Compounds?
Yeah, I mean, well, they're both owned by the same people, and they both closed rides that were cool. The Sky Ride apparently opened up for the folks from IAPA when they did the
golden ticket. Yeah, it was golden ticket event.
So they decided to open it for those people, and then they closed it again forever. And then the Log Jammer, which was the last aero log flume with an uphill section, is also gone. It now is just a pile of fiberglass. So great that a company that once cared about history doesn't so much anymore, if at all. I mean, the Sky Ride wasn't technically historical. The Log Jam was interesting, gave it a water ride. Other than the Rapids, which also got rid of historical. I don't know what even people are going to do in the Lake Compound's southern section of that park. There's a Rapids ride. There's literally I don't know. So good luck. I hope they have a plan, and I hope it involves something other than animatronic dinosaurs. And,
Probably not.
Probably not. No.
Dinosaurs alive, everyone.
They already have one there, so they can just get more. Like now that Cedar Fair is going to get rid of all of them, they can have all these gold-covered dinosaurs, and they can just sit everywhere, and birds can peck into their skin.
Is Cedar Fair getting rid of all theirs?
Slowly. I think.
Slowly?
Yeah. The Kings Island ones, apparently they came and they got rid of them in like a day or two.
Because I mean,
the Chinese company that makes all of them just showed up with trucks and them out, gone for good. No one will miss it. No one.
That's a fact.
No one.
That was such a weird addition. Such a weird one. I still don't get that necessarily off the top of my head. I mean, you're trying to basically get kids and additional spending per guest, but yeah.
Dick Kinsel, ladies and gentlemen. Dick Kinsel.
Yep, just like with Windseeker. So, do you want to talk about your articles a little bit about guest spending, I guess? Because I know,
because I know one a couple of weeks ago, didn't we?
Yeah, but Andrew wasn't here, and he wants to talk to us about it.
Yeah, sure. So I did that one that hopefully you've already read, and then there was another one which I just did, which was about theme park sort of regional theme park revenue. And I didn't really go into SeaWorld so much because SeaWorld doesn't actually make so, there's not really any point in discussing, SeaWorld's mix of revenues from the perspective that they don't have enough to cover their expenses. So they are kind of floundering and they're burning through cash at an incredible rate.
And to tie that back into the employment article, just the other day, yesterday, 2 days ago, something like that, Disney announced that they were giving bonuses to all their employees.
Yes.
Universal did that a month or so ago, and now there's you can definitely tie it. There's some companies that do layoffs and everything like that. But the interesting thing is, SeaWorld's not, at least from what we know, giving bonuses to their employees. So I mean, it's just, again, in this very tight labor market, if you're one of the people in town looking for a job at a theme park, it's going to be hard to go, hey, I want to go work at SeaWorld, when you heard these two other companies within the last 3 weeks gave $1,000 bonuses. I mean, obviously that's not going to be the norm every year, but still, it helps in a competitive labor market like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, obviously people are still negotiating with Disney as far as the new contract goes. The $1,000 bonus actually helps out the employees if they want to spend a week sitting at home. Which, by the way, if the employees actually were willing to spend a week sitting at home not working, it would break Disney in about a day or two.
That's a good point, because I know that's what you were talking about last time. Is there's no way those employees can afford to strike. Well, Disney just gave them enough money to strike for a few days.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if those $1,000 payouts come before the end of the contract or after. Though I suppose they can always just wait until the money shows up and then decide, I think that we need to have a new contract. In any case, it says a lot that SeaWorld's not doing that. It makes them less competitive within that market. And, we also haven't heard anything like that from Six Flags or Cedar Fair yet either, to be honest, or Hershend or anybody else to say, hey,
well, and I mean, even bonuses aside, we haven't heard any like big, hey, we're doing big raises, we're doing bonuses, we changed our bonus program from any of the regional parks. And someone did tweet at me and said that Valley Fair's been slowly hiking up their rates to, I think now they're like $10, $11 or something like that. I was pretty surprised by the number there. But I mean, for parks like Cedar Point, Kings Island, they all started their hiring push in the last week or two, because man, they've been spamming their social accounts with, hey, come join us. And no movement there. One thing I did want to touch on about the employment thing is, did you guys see the article the general manager of Cedar Point wrote in the local paper?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was interesting. At face value, if you take it for face value, it was a really good article where he was just basically saying, hey, Cedar Point's been here for a while, Sandusky's been here for a while, we got to continue to work together. We really appreciate Sandusky. But as I kind of posted that, a couple people came back and was like, well, clearly this could mean, are they trying to mask the fact that they might try to move the corporate headquarters or, but there was also a big push there at the end, hey, we want to hire local. Please come work for us. Please come work for us. And almost got the vibe like, hey, they're really going to try to go strong for that local market this year, which would be interesting and probably something that would help them a lot because you have, a decent sized city right there. But I'm not sure if that's going to be enough to kind of fill all those positions.
I mean, Sandusky's pretty damn small.
It's small in like the cosmic sense is that it's not like Cincinnati or Detroit or something like that. But, it's probably got 60, 70,000 people, I would guess, that probably live there. I'm going to look it up now.
And then you add in stuff like Huron, and you got a couple tinier cities, like Tifton, and I forget a couple other ones that I know.
Clinton, there's Marblehead. So it's actually it's 25,000. You're right. It is smaller. Probably the whole area might be 60 to 70,000. Yeah. Once you get into places like Vermilion and Castalia and what's that town to the south of it where the racetrack's at? I have to look online.
New Porter, New something like that is where.
Norwalk.
Norwalk. Yeah.
So I guess my attitude with it is. They were talking not just about, having locals come in, but saying, we want to be flexible with people's hours.
Yeah.
They're going to have to really advertise that fact locally, whether that's in print or in flyers or something of that ilk. Sandusky's unemployment rate, from what I recall, is actually fairly high. I know that because it's a tourist centralized city where big factories used to be a couple of like auto dye places that were in town, and there might be one left. That stuff is closed. Actually, a lot of the wages there are pretty low, so there's going to be appeal. If you can give somebody a job at Cedar Point where they can 20, 30 hours a week and get paid $9 an hour plus get free tickets for their kids and free entry for themselves, something that's like a part-time extra gig. One thing that was interesting in one of the discussions I had about this online is that apparently there were a lot of employees that were upset because Cedar Point started to go to temp agencies.
Yeah, that was a big thing over in the fall last year. And the temp agencies were like paying like almost like double what the people who were there all season were making or something like that.
But you know what? If that's what Cedar Point should be doing, and paying that kind of money, then maybe that's what they should have done from the beginning, because otherwise they wouldn't have to be paying all this money to temps, and they wouldn't have to be paying that money out to the temp agency, because the temp agency takes,
they're paying. They're probably, if they're paying those people $12, they're paying the agency probably $3-4 at least on top of that.
Exactly. So I get where the employees that are regular employees would be upset about it, but you know what? I'm sorry that you didn't negotiate that correctly. Like, you could have put in your 2-week notice and then gone to the temp agency and gotten yourself rehired at Cedar Point doing the same exact thing for more money, but you didn't choose to do that because you had loyalty for a company that really doesn't care that much about you in the grand scheme of things. So just, as an aside to the people that are out there that are thinking about, working at theme parks, that's an interesting point about Valley Fair. And I'll also mention Valley Fair, along with Cedar Fair or Cedar Point, actually has housing for employees on site if you're not from the area. So if you want to work at a regional theme park this summer, look at Valley Fair as an option, because at least they might pay you real money. There's the real. I'm looking
right here and trying to see. Glassdoor came up first, and a lot of the jobs are around the $10 or $11 mark, which I'm guessing. I mean, not having any numbers in front of me, I have to assume is pretty good for the outskirts of Minneapolis.
I remember that Minneapolis's their per diem rate, their federal per diem rate, when I was doing federal per diem stuff. Again, I'm still applying for jobs, obviously, which I'm all grossly overqualified for. But I remember that it at one point had one of the highest rates in the United States. It was up there with like top tier cities. It dropped down a little bit, but it's still not like a cheap city. Minneapolis is pretty rad, and as a result, lots of people want to live there. So, but if you have housing that's paid for by Cedar Fair, then it's a whole different story, right? Like, or at least like largely subsidized by Cedar Fair, because then you can afford to live there on $11 an hour, working 60-hour weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been nothing from the parks really about that change. And then the revenue thing, and this this is bared out with some of the discussions we've had afterwards. Is one thing that's really changed about the regional amusement park industry is that there's been a move away from group sales, and you see it in the numbers and the reports, and you hear it from the people on the ground. And whether that's a result of corporations cutting back or combining one another, or service-related industry and don't want to have to go to another service-related industry to entertain themselves. I don't know, but I thought that to me was one of the major takeaways, was that shift, and also just that as much as I hate to say it, Six Flags seems to be like doing the right thing. Like,
yeah, it's definitely funny. You talked, for some reason, Six Flags still has like this. I feel like all the up and coming enthusiasts had this like preconceived notion that Six Flags is like a horrible company and it sucks. And yeah, they definitely did some bad years, and no park's perfect right now. But from a business standpoint, I mean, they have a lot of really interesting things going on. I mean, when you look at what they're doing internationally, where they're basically just licensing it out, and just if the park opens, they're basically getting a fee. It's like a franchise, and costs them next to nothing. And they're predicting 6 to 8 million people a year at this park in Shanghai. That's going to be a lot of money coming into Six Flags that will get reinvested into your local park, perhaps.
Yeah, or at the very least into the people that invest in the company after it came out of bankruptcy. I mean, I think it's surprising to me to some degree, like how good they are and how smart they've been and how much they've been able to sort of alter the course of what parks are doing. And now that you look at kind of like the pattern recognition, like of course everybody would be trying to copy them because they've got sort of the secret sauce figured out. It's just that there's a lot of people that are kind of thinking archaically, I think, still, and I don't know if it's going to take some of those ideas. The fact that they brought in somebody from the outside like Jim Reed Anderson, who here's somebody that worked for, I think he worked for Siemens, and he worked for the healthcare industry for a while. Really smart guy. And, he really figured out, like, we've got these people, they come to the park all the time. Why don't we make guaranteed money off of them? Like, why do we let them leave the park to go eat? Even if we aren't charging them $15 each time, at least we can get $100 out of them.
Which is better than nothing if they were always going to the Burger King across the street.
Exactly. And, he came up with that, and man, that kind of thought just has like rocketed across the industry where everybody's copying it. And I don't know if everyone's copying it and understanding why they're copying it, or if they're just copying it because they think it's a good idea. I
mean, I think the perfect example of that is the SeaWorld dining pass down here. And I know a lot of people around here in Orlando, all the other In the Loop guys down here in Orlando had the pass. And I mean, it's one of those things that I don't got the numbers in front of me, but Cedar Fair and Six Flags have been doing these kind of testing these all season dining passes for the last few years. And I think they're priced in, around $100, $150. So when SeaWorld announced last year, hey, we're going to do all season dining too, if you have a pass, it's $70 or $75. We're all just like, wait a minute, you're open year round. These other parks are charging $150 for 6 months for crappy chicken fingers, and you actually have quality food. So clearly the margins aren't going to be as good. Okay, cool. And guess what? It's not back after the first year. So I think to your point right there, some of these parks are doing the right thing, doing it well. And then it's just kind of funny to see other parks come in and be like, oh, well, we're going to do that too, and copy it, and then just, fail miserably at it.
You know what the funny part is, though? If SeaWorld came back and said, okay, we did not expect that much usage out of it, and they just quietly put it on the website without as much fanfare and said $250, they might actually be able to make something like profit off of it, and people would still get it. Because if you're one of the Orlando people, the perma tourist that goes to parks, regularly, you can easily go to SeaWorld, 15, 20 times, 30 times and get meals, and in your mind you'll pay for it versus eating outside.
I was doing that for a dinner. I work not too far from SeaWorld, so there'd be, at least once or twice a month, I'd swing by there for dinner and pick, have some food. And I know some people that used it much more frequently. I always joked, man, if my office was a little bit closer, I'd be there almost for lunch every single day. But that was actually the surprising thing. And this just shows, some parks from SeaWorld don't do their full research. It's like, I remember I heard rumors of it. I was like, oh, I'd easily pay $150 for it. And everyone was floored when it was in the 70s. I remember putting a poll on Twitter and being like, hey, realistically, guys, I know we all like the low price, but like, what price were you willing to pay for this? I think most people were like, yeah, $150, $175 for a full year. Because it actually, when it rolled out, they gave you 2 months free. So it was 14 because it rolled out in early November last year, and it was through the end of this year. So you got pretty much like 13 and a half, 14 months for almost half the price of what Six Flags or some Cedar Fair parks charge for 6-7 months.
And not even like a full 6-7 months. Like it's like a partial because they're only open during weekends. So
exactly.
Yeah, no, it's
Andrew, you ate away DarKastle. Think about that.
No. Easy WDW did.
Oh.
Remember, he was going there like every single day because
there's a few times where I went there and like I remember I felt a little dirty because I would walk in through the turnstile and I'd be in the park for literally like 25 minutes. And it's funny because I would run into like the legend from In the Loop. Like there was a couple times like we're passing, I was like, oh, you leave him? He's like, yep, just grab lunch. I ran into a bunch of other people from like Twitter and stuff. Probably like almost every single time I went and hey, yeah, hey, how's it going? Up? Yep, just grab food, heading out right now. Like I there's a couple of times I was in and out in like 15 minutes, but the one time that was the most hilarious is I'm like, okay, clearly it's just a couple of us like uber nerds that are taking advantage of this. But there was this guy who I was in line with to get in, walk in. And as I was leaving, he was walking out too. So I'm like, clearly, like, like maybe he's some big fan too. And I just didn't know who he was or anything. But I was like, clearly other people are doing this too. And I think I heard some rumors that the average usage was in like the 30s or 40s compared to. I've heard rumors that some of the regional parks, the usage is in the high single digits per pass on an average. So.
It was basically like welfare, and like it was, but it wasn't intended to be, obviously. And again, if they had properly done their market research and understood what the purpose of the pass was to do, they would not have turned themselves into like a glorified soup kitchen, which is what they did.
Exactly.
And I'm not trying to be harsh, but there are people that probably, I'm sure there are people that go to Six Flags regularly within the meal deals. I've known some people historically who would go 40 or 50 times in a season to a Six Flags park with their meal deal and get their slice of pizza and fries meal, and then go to Panda Express or whatever. And like that was a big part of their their day, or at least like they would go for dinner after work or something. But in somewhere like Orlando, where there's like the average per capita income in Orlando is lower than Detroit, so you're not talking about a super rich area. Like, if you can tell people they can eat 365 days a year for $79,
they're going to take advantage. I mean, I was just really mad that when I went to school and had classes at the campus, like literally within like spitting distance of SeaWorld, we could see all the rides from the classroom. I was like, man, I would have loved this. I would have had so much more money in my pocket. I would have went there every single day in between class, but yeah, they just clearly did not price that right.
And it's funny that like after they didn't price it correctly, they didn't think like maybe we didn't price that correctly. Maybe we should bring it back, but at a much higher price that might actually be profitable.
Yeah, they just gave up.
They just gave up. They're like, I guess it's not going to work. Like again, like what we were talking about earlier with like the lack of innovative thought or et cetera, et cetera. So, I don't know what else to say about that other than that. But yeah.
So speaking of like all season passes, I know you kind of touched about this in your article a bit, but I think that the biggest thing I always hear, listening to, people kind of talk about Cedar Fair and Six Flags, and like the big difference I would say from a financial approach, maybe not big difference, but one of the key differences I think is Six Flags, like their goal, like, and then Jim Reed Anderson has even said this, like if he could get every single person walking through that gate to have a season pass, that'd be awesome. And, you hear investors kind of call them out on that sometimes, like, hey, do you really want like all season pass holders? Like, is that mix important? Like, I mean, I'm just curious, like, what do you think? Like, do you think going to an all season, having where everyone has a season pass and you're not necessarily getting that those, selling those day tickets for, the 40 or $50, is that smart? Is that
so? First of all, they're never going to be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
nobody can. There's always going to be
no way.
Like, there's a point where you reach saturation and you can't sell any more season passes to anybody. But here's what I'm going to say, because I've thought about it more, and I realized that it's actually really smart, because if you think about it like this, okay, if you buy a season pass to Six Flags, or you get a membership, which is really what they want you to get these days, is not a season pass, but a membership,
yeah,
where you're charged on a monthly basis X amount of money to be a member. Once you're a member and you're used to that charge showing up on your account every month, like, you'll just never cancel. And if they can get you to convert from being somebody who's there for a day and turn you into somebody that's a constant source of income for the next 7 or 8 years, even as they, inch up the price, say 5 or 10% every year, to try and, A, beat inflation, but B, also try and help in terms of the requirements from Wall Street that, they're supposed to turn a certain percentage of profit every single year to show continuous growth. If they can do that, then they're all about it. From like a social perspective, I think it's a little weird, because essentially what we've turned the parks into is like this weird private club.
Yeah.
So what we're turning, places like Six Flags Great America into is like a low rent roller coaster country club. And, it's not, I don't know, it just feels weird. Like, it doesn't feel community based. It feels, they're all exclusive, all the gated parks are exclusive, but it kind of feels like it's leaving a door open to somebody that is more open to sort of infrequent visitation or group sales sorts of things.
Yeah.
Like,
So then to that point, I know, I'm looking at your article right now, and you have like kind of a comparable prices of season passes. And it's just really interesting, I think, to see Six Flags, they're doing really well, but man, they're still really, really, really cheap. And they kind of talked before that they still think, I think his phrase that he uses all the time, Jim Reed Anderson, is they're in the middle innings of a prices increase. But I mean, do you ever see Six Flags being at the, I'm looking here, a Kings Island season pass, $117. I know like a platinum pass is around like the 190, 200 mark.
Yeah,
but, man, you
226.
You can get the super duper gold plus membership, whatever. They just rolled out a new pass at Six Flags a couple weeks ago. Like, and that's like $60, and that gets you every parking, the whole 9 yards. I mean, if you were Jim Reed Anderson, do you continue to just kind of enjoy the success you have, or do you start pushing that? Do you think Six Flags can get away with charging $125 in a couple of years?
I think that the quality of the parks has to continue to increase and get better for them to get to that point. I don't think, part of the reason why the people were reacting to the cheap season passes when they went back to cheap season passes as being their major draw point, and started pushing it so much, is that, it was cheap compared to at least like what you got out of it. And like, when you start to increase the price of anything, people are going to start saying, is this worth $100? Is this worth $150? Is this worth $200? I don't know that Six Flags is worth $200. I think that for some people, some of the Cedar Fair parks are worth $200. I can't imagine there's a whole lot of Michigan's Adventure platinum pass holders out there, but if there are, it's because they have access to the other parks.
Yeah, so they're hey, we'll go to Cedar Point, ride Steel Vengeance, might as well.
Right, or they they live in the Chicagoland area and maybe they make a weekend trip that involves Valley Fair for some ungodly reason, or for fun, God forbid. But like, I think that the Six Flags this passes also seem to be more at like the high end, like the Busch season passes and the Cedar Fair season passes, the very high end, those platinum passes. Those are where you start to be be able to go to all the other parks. Six Flags just seems to look at the other parks as far as like visitation from the season pass holders as like a nice bonus where they're going to spend money, you know? And I kind of think that might actually be smarter than what Cedar Fair and Busch does. Like if I could go to Busch Gardens and buy a season pass this year at Williamsburg for $114, and then I could use that at Busch Gardens Tampa and SeaWorld Orlando, that would greatly increase the chances that I'd go to those parks. Of course, it would.
So as a quick side note to that, they started to crack down on it. If you have a Florida license or billing address, they won't let you do this anymore. But for the longest time, you could get the platinum passes for SeaWorld parks were park specific. And I'm locked in right now. I'm paying like $13 a month for my platinum pass because I drove up to Williamsburg a couple of years ago and got it up there. The same pass would cost me like $28 down here. So I was like a broke college student, and like me and a couple of buddies did the math. We're like, okay, if we drive up here for a weekend and buy these passes, it will in a year's time we'll make our money back from driving up there by the cost we were saved by buying the thing at SeaWorld. They've since wised up to it, and now, like I said, if you have a Florida ID, they block you from buying a pass up at Williamsburg. You kind of have to get around the system a little bit. But yeah, to your point, like I almost wonder.
By the way, I think Cedar Fair's platinum passes are the same price at every park.
They are, yeah, which is good or bad, like you said. Like, are you going to be selling that many platinum passes at Michigan Adventures? Maybe, you know, if they're on the southern portion of Michigan, but you look at some of the other parks where it's like Valley Fair, they're probably not going to any other park. Worlds of Fun, maybe. So does it make sense? You know, if you charge $30 less, you might risk a couple of the hardcore fans driving there to be cheap. But I mean, is that, you know, that $30 you're going to lose on the cheap ass, like myself, who would try to do that? Like, are you going to sell 500 more and make that up? You know?
Well, that's an interesting thought too. Is like, okay, if let's say you're a Cedar Fair and you have Valley Fair, the only other park that's within 5 hours that you own of Valley Fair is Worlds of Fun. So if you include Worlds of Fun in the Valley Fair season pass and vice versa, because they're pretty much like in this island, you know, out in the middle of the Great Plains where they're not near anything else and not even really near each other. But, you know, theoretically, you know, one person could go from one to the other. Like if you allowed visitation between those two parks for those season pass holders, just on regular season passes, like you undoubtedly would get a couple people that would go.
Yeah, you definitely
more than if you get a platinum.
Now, do you remember, to that point, do you remember when Cedar Fair bought Geauga Lake? They, for 1 year, and this, I think it was, I'm getting my timelines all confused here, but I think it was before the Paramount Parks. But there was like, they tried to do like some weird, like your Cedar Point, because back then I think your passes just got you into any park as it was. And when they got Geauga Lake, they're like, oh, nope. Your Cedar Point pass gets you into all the parks except Geauga Lake. Because it's so close, you have to pay extra like $50 to add Geauga Lake to it. I mean, not to get all...
That definitely drove lots of people to go to Geauga Lake, didn't it?
Yeah. Worked real well for them.
Dick Kinzel, slow clap. You know, no, it's the same thing. Even like you can go across the board with all those parks. Like another one is Lake Compounce and Kennywood. You know, why is it that you go and you pay $125 for a platinum pass at Lake Compounce, but you can't use it at Kennywood or Idlewild or Storyland, New Hampshire? Like that seems like a really obvious thing to do because it drives people to be like, oh yeah, there's a park there, and I could bring my kids to that park and make a vacation out of it. And then those people would never have gone to Storyland, but now you can make money off of them there, even though maybe you don't get the gate admission off of them. You will get, you know, food and beverage and souvenirs and all the rest because, you know, quite frankly, you already got $125 out of that person at Lake Compounce.
Yeah, so maybe to that point, maybe it'd be interesting, you know, I mean, Disney's complicated, you know, shows that, hey, you can still be super, super complicated with your pricing and people still do it. Maybe it'd be interesting to see like a Cedar Fair approach and say, for like a Valley Fair or a Worlds of Fun, you know, in between pass, you got your regular pass, you have your platinum pass still like the 220 or whatever it is for the chain. But hey, if you're a Valley Fair season pass holder, $20 more, you can get a Valley Fair or a Worlds of Fun, added onto it or something like that. Try to do some combo deals. Same thing with like California. Hey, if you have a Great America Pass and just it's a Great America Pass, well, that gets you 50% off tickets at Knott's Berry Farms or that, something like that to try to drive them going to Six Flags. They're like, hey, I can get tickets for Knott's Berry Farm. I'll go there instead.
Or if they're going to Disneyland.
Yeah.
Then maybe you get them to extend a day and go to Knott's Berry Farm. Like I'm looking right now at the Great America passes. So Great America, you can get the regular pass, which is just Great America, or you can get the Gold Pass, which has Gilroy Gardens. But then you have to go all the way to the Platinum Pass, which is as expensive as all the other Platinum Passes in the country to get Knott's Berry Farm.
And maybe 2% of the people who have passes for Great America are going to go anywhere else except Knott's Berry Farms. And even that, there's so much competition there. I could understand where like you got the Kings Island and Cedar Point area. There's going to be a lot of cross visitation there. But some of these outliers, yeah, I think your point where like, does it make sense, for them to be charging that high? Maybe that's where Six Flags is winning because, I mean, Six Flags has come out and said that's why they're trying to buy those smaller parks, small parks or small water parks to try to drive, that's
more.
to go, hey, we give you more value for your pass. It's almost like Six Flags is trying to encourage people to show them, hey, for that price, you can go to any of our parks. Might as well take advantage of that. Where, Cedar Fair is like, well, if you want to go to our parks, we got this like Platinum Pass over here,
Yeah, and then same thing with Busch and even like Hershon. I mean, if you get an SDC season pass, Silver Dollar City, you don't get any discounts to Dollywood now. You do get discounts to Silver Dollar City if you have a Dollywood season pass, but it's only 50% off a one-day admission. And you don't get any discounts to Wild Adventures anymore, which is
same thing with Wild Adventures. There's nothing there. Like you get a season pass there, and that doesn't get you. It gets you a small discount at some of the other parks, but.
I mean, like, I would totally be much more interested in going to Wild Adventures, which is not that great a park, but it has lots of coasters, if I could get in for free, or even at least 50% off would be something. Because then I can combine it with OWA and, maybe do some of the other panhandle stuff in Florida.
Or even just when you're driving down to Orlando or something, instead of stopping at the McDonald's at an exit or something, you're like, hey, I'll swing into to Wild Adventures for 2 hours on my drive down. Because it's perfect location in the sense of people driving down. So, send out an email to everyone who has a Dollywood pass and say, hey, driving to Florida anytime soon, stop in at Wild Adventures.
Exactly. Like just occasional email burst, something like that. And your point is really well made too about, the things that Six Flags has been doing in terms of buying new facilities because, man, maybe you have to pay $10 extra this year for a Marine World, or was it Discovery Kingdom now, a season pass. But now you also get to go to Waterworld Concord, which is a pretty nice bonus to get, just kind of tossed in there. Or, I know they're probably going to, look at other purchases. Wasn't there something they were looking at in the Atlanta area too? Or am I
No,
okay.
I think they use the Atlanta. They use the Atlanta area. The reason why you're thinking that probably is because they use the Atlanta area as the example. Atlanta and Mexico, where they're like, hey, we have the park, and then we have a separate facility that's not next to the park, but rather a drive away, a decent drive, and that helps drive past value there. So I totally can see them, buying up some smaller parks to, hey, instead of getting that Cedar Fair season pass, get ours because you'll get that other bonus park that's a little farther away and gives you something different to do.
Yeah, like I still haven't been to Clementon yet. So it's like, yeah, I'd totally go to Clementon if it came with a Six Flags season pass.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. I was there this summer, and it's nothing super special. It's a neat little park, a little pricey at like I think $30 or something. But yeah, to your point, like if I was in that area, it would probably be a once every 10 years. Maybe if there's like a coaster event there or something, I'd check it out a little bit more frequently. But man, if I could get it with my Six Flags pass, yeah, I'd swing in there, once a year, twice a year or something, just for fun, just to shake things up, and if I was average Joe going, do I get a Sesame Place pass, or do I get a Dorney Park pass or a Hershey Park pass? Well, those are a lot more money, and I get that park versus, my Six Flags pass. I got Six Flags. I got this park over here. I can drive down to America. Whatever.
Go to New England, go to Great Escape.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think I think it's a really underrated aspect of their business plan, and I would really like to see Cedar Fair do more with it, because I think, like you said, California, the Midwest area, even Ohio. I mean, to not just have a specific, they have a ticket deal where you get one ticket to Six Flags, or one ticket to Cedar Point, one ticket to Kings Island for $65. Like, why not have a season pass for
those two?
For just those two?
And especially, I think for a while they had like a stranglehold on the market, but now with Kentucky Kingdom really showing like, hey, we want to play with the big boys, and Holiday World's still doing Holiday World stuff. But I mean, if you're on the southern end of the Cincinnati market, there, you're only an hour drive ish from Kentucky Kingdom. So, I mean, all of a sudden they're going to start really competing with that. So, if you're that fan,
1-day visits, like if you're from out of the area,
it's $20 and you get 2 days and you get free soda.
Yeah, I mean, it's a freaking great deal. So. Yeah, I really think that's something that Cedar Fair should look at and try to copy from Six Flags. It's shocking that I'm at this point saying like everybody needs to copy certain things from Six Flags, but really they should be copying from Six Flags. But doing it the right way and intelligent and understanding why it works, not just doing it because like, well, Six Flags has PhotoPass, so we should do PhotoPass too. Well, first of all, is it working for Six Flags? Secondly, is that really a product that your guests want? Because otherwise, then you have to spend money to get in a bunch of photographers, create the infrastructure electronically to get all the digital pictures sent over. Are people actually going to buy them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So
it's probably a contract thing, so it's a several-year deal.
Yeah, exactly. It's don't be dumb. Essentially, don't just do it because Six Flags is doing it, but look at what they're doing and see what you can adapt. Because right now, as far as their profitability goes and as far as their projections in the future go, like they're doing everything right. The only thing that, always embitters me as a theme park fan is that they aren't building the kind of huge attractions. Like, they're building really cool stuff this year for what it's worth.
But nothing that like Cedar Fair, you pretty much can count on. Every year they're going to build a ride that you're like, I'm going to get on a plane or I'm going to drive out of my way to go there. And, Six Flags, I'll drive to go ride Twisted Cyclone, but that's just because I can drive there, in a day, do a long weekend. But I mean, if Twisted Cyclone was coming to St. Louis, I wouldn't be going to that, but man, Cedar Fair, a couple parks out. Like I said, I booked a trip to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, and Kings Dominion. I'm like, I got Twisted Timbers looks great. I got to go to that, And I think, when was the last time we really saw a coaster from Six Flags that was like, damn, this is where, maybe Twisted Colossus. But, I think Justice Leagues are good business decision for the park. And I know they're really pricey, but man, I think that's where they could really start doing some cool stuff if they found how they can still make money and not do not even Mark Shapiro, but before that, where it was like, hey, we'll buy Six Flags, make it Six Flags Ohio and put 4 roller coasters in 1 year. And, just spend, $200 million in capital and clearly won't be able to make that back.
Yeah. I mean, there's a middle ground there, and I'd like to see them go back. I understand they have a lot of big iron already, and they've taken a lot of the rides that are kind of crappy or were high maintenance and crappy, or that could have been good if they were willing to put the money into it and just wanted to go a different direction with that spend, like Riverside Cyclone and Georgia Cyclone. And they've gone this direction with the RMCs. I mean, but for a ground up ride, I mean, the last ride that they had that was really impressive that they built ground up was probably Goliath at Great America.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
But if you go back prior to that, you're probably talking about X-Flight at Great America. And if you go prior to that, I mean, you're going into like the ancient history because they hadn't built anything.
Yeah, you're probably going back to almost like.
But like none of it's like.
You're probably going back to almost like El Toro kind of era.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not talking about. There's no Fury 325s on their agenda that you can see coming. It's mostly like the new flat rides that they have going into like Great Adventure. Those are really cool looking. Those tire launched rides that are kind of like a figure eight. I forget what they're called. Those look really cool too.
The Skyline Skywarp.
Cool rides, but none of them are like, wow, this is a ride that's going to anchor this section of the park for 25 years in the way that Raging Bull or Goliath at Magic Mountain or Batman at Six Flags Over Georgia or something like that did. They're not rides of that.
Yeah, they're not signature rides,
right? Exactly.
And maybe that's part of their long. Like we were just saying a few minutes ago, Six Flags. You were just saying, yeah, I don't know how much. They got to work on a few things before they can start charging that $120, $150 price point for a season pass. Maybe we're just at the maybe Jim Reed Anderson realizes, hey, we need some flat rides, we need some good quality dark rides, and maybe that's a part of his long-term strategy. Build up the core foundation of the park, kind of get what, and then a year from now or 2 years, he's just going to go crazy. But
they don't really seem to be saying that. Like, if anything, they've been saying that they want to reduce the percentage of spend from revenue.
Yeah.
Which suggests that they're not going to do that unless the revenue goes way, way up.
Well, the only thing I can think of that will help that is if these international deals ever open. I mean, Six Flags Dubai is, we were talking on the Dubai show a couple months ago. It's still just sand, and a couple bulldozers. So I mean, if that could ever get off the ground and they can start getting those like franchise fees coming in, then their capital expenditures to revenue ratio might be shrinking, but they'll still have more money to play with. But until those deals get realized, then
it's going to be what it is right now, which is like a lot of clones, a lot of small footprint rides, nothing that's really going to have like a long lasting legacy. But there'll be a lot of really fun stuff. They've built some pretty innovative things. And, as bad as the advertising is, the parks are generally like not so bad. The employees, they got rid of the IROC thing that Cedar Point has been using or Cedar Fair has been using for training. And their ride operations were actually way better this year at Six Flags than they probably have been in 15, 20 years.
You can't see me right now, but I'm doing visual scan. That was the most obnoxious.
Those that have no idea that I've actually stuck through this hour of Cedar Fair and Six Flags discussion on a Universal.
Just do yourself a favor and Google a visual scan. But there has to be a video on YouTube or something. It's just
like IROC visual scan or something like that.
Yeah,
it's preposterous, and it's actually like capacity killing. The way that they teach people how to manage rides. Cedar Point went to doing that, and it's been murderous to them. They used to be one of the most efficient parks in the world by far, and now they're like sluggish. They're like Busch Gardens Tampa bad sometimes.
Like IROC isn't like an iMac or
like IROC, yeah.
Okay, because I did IROCK and I got the world's first power generating iPad rocking chair. So let me.
That's pretty cool. I like that. I'm on YouTube. I'm on YouTube right now, and if you Google visual scan Six Flags, there is plenty of videos of this preposterous. Basically, when you're ready to go, everyone's strapped in, and normally they'd be like clear, and the ride would roll out of the station. Usually the operator at the booth goes visual scan, and they all put their hand up to their head, kind of like like they're like looking out into a horizon, and they literally like visual scan like 180 all around them. Yeah.
They have to turn all the way around, like side to side.
Yeah, and then visual scan complete, and then like, and I always felt bad for them because like everyone's clearly kind of like chuckling, like even if they're not chuckling out loud, everyone's just like, come on, like really, it looks. And like I'm watching a video right now, and the guy is rotating back and forth like 180 degrees so fast that like. He would not be able to see anything, but hey, the manual says I have to rotate 180 degrees. So boom, boom, rotate. I'm good. It's more like a dance maneuver for some of these people.
And they switched to like another thing that Cedar Point used to do is like, it's what parks are supposed to do, which is you check the seatbelt and the lap bar at the same time, right? Because you should be able to do that. It's not really that difficult. Like you pull on the seatbelt if you don't see that it's latched, and then you push down, pull up on the lap bar. Well, IROC had Cedar Fair go back and do seatbelts first, then lap bars. Which, if you're like an old school guy like me, like you remember when Busch Gardens Tampa started doing that?
Oh, on Guazi.
Yeah, and everyone's like, they don't know how to run a wood coaster. Now, literally half the fucking world runs world coasters like this, and it's the most irritating and grating thing in the world. It's horrible. Whoever, the only thing I can think of is there must be some sort of incredible savings that's achieved by getting IROC in terms of your insurance.
Gotta be.
There has to be. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you do this? It's horrible. It's horrible. It's the worst. So, again, Six Flags got rid of them. Six Flags had great operations this year. I can't believe I'm saying that.
Neither can I.
And that's where we're at now. Is like Cedar Fair has worse operations than Six Flags, and Six Flags has the right business model. And
I mean, if you look at, I know another thing you talked about in your article was like the like special. And I mean, you could argue really probably the reason why we're seeing Winterfest pop up at all the Cedar Fair parks is because Six Flags
did it.
Did it. And I mean, if anything, again, going back to when we went to Kings Island, park looked nice, but like, man, we're standing there going, oh, none of the rides are open. And, we're hearing stories that same weekend, like Nitro's running in 25 degrees, 30 degrees. Like, so it's like, like Six Flags, maybe it's, Cedar Fair being super conservative. It's their first year. And I did hear some rumors that the budgets were very, very conservative just because it was the first year. But I mean, like, there was a couple days in December where like, it was like 35 degrees and pretty much most of the stuff at Great Adventure was open, and like there's days where it was 45 degrees at Kings Island and you still only have one ride open. But yeah, I mean, you look at it and you go, okay, so they're doing the Winterfest stuff. I mean, how long before we see a Mardi Gras parade come to some of the Cedar Fair parks? But I mean, that's another genius thing. I got to see the Mardi Gras parade down in Mexico at Six Flags Mexico last year, and it was really good. Like, I would say it wasn't that much under what you see Universal do, and people rave about that event. And they're doing it 2 times a day at the park. Great music, great floats, and everything. So it's like, man, if you could, they got it down. They got some really interesting ideas going, and those events are what's going to help them.
And by the way, I know for Winterfest for sure that's outsourced. Like, Six Flags doesn't come up with those decorations.
No, yeah, they use a third party to do all the decorations. And everything.
Yeah, very smart, very, very smart of them. So enough about Six Flags and Cedar Fair. We've talked about, I think, to death at this point. Read the article for more. But yeah, Six Flags, not terrible. Who knew? Is the larger story here?
Yeah. So do you want to talk about our trip, Alan, a little bit, or do you want to go into questions?
Let's do we'll briefly do the Detroit stuff, I guess.
Okay.
So, Joe, you came to Detroit.
Yeah.
We did a lot of stuff, like a lot. Like, we started going through the list of things, and afterwards, like, my wife and I were like, wow, we did a lot. Like, there was a lot there.
Yeah. We did a lot. I mean.
Was that your first time to, like, Detroit to do kind of like a drinking food kind of trip?
For me it was. Yeah, the only other time I've been to Detroit was my uncle on my mom's side got married a long time ago, and I went for a weekend. So that's pretty much the only other time. So, yeah.
So as far as, like, I mean, I don't know if it, how much of it counts as themed entertainment, because, stuff like, we went to Cliff Bell's, for instance, which is a jazz bar. It's not themed as a jazz bar. It's a jazz bar from the 20s and 30s. Like, that's what it is physically. We did cool stuff, though. I mean, any particular things that you would suggest to people about Detroit?
I mean, I really enjoy the Detroit Institute of the Arts. That was really good. We saw the Monet exhibit. We saw a bunch of awesome art. We saw the God, what's his face? The giant mural.
The Diego Rivera.
Oh yeah,
mural.
Diego Rivera mural, which was fantastic. Saw Van Gogh. We saw a bunch of other stuff. We saw the what was it? I wouldn't call it deconstruction. It was the alternative take and a kind of a. It was basically a play on those 1400s paintings of, like,
the painting
kings.
of the dude with the Timbs. And his
basically
wife on the horse, which I love that painting.
Yeah, instead of it being like a 1600s or 1400s, like king, white king, on a horse, it was a black dude in Timberlands with a big, awesome coat, and it was in the African American wing, And I think it was 2008 it was painted or something, but it's nuts. It was like 20 feet tall. It was badass. It was just really, really cool to see that. Yeah, that was a bunch of fun. I had a lot of fun there. We went to Third Man Records. We went to, what was that other place next to it we went to?
We went to the Shinola shop.
Yeah, looked at all the stuff we can't afford.
Oh man, that stuff is so expensive. Like I walked out, I was like, man, these turntables look great. And then I was like, oh shit, they're like $2,000.
I had a cup of coffee and it was amazing. And that was only $4.
The free.
They have free soda and water there. So now you know.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I got coffee anyways. Huh, there you go.
Yeah, no. I did find out because you had ordered the coffee. I went to go get my soda, and they're like, oh, no, it's on us.
Nice.
I was like, oh, okay, sweet.
If you like that stuff, they have an outlet here at the Orlando outlets where everything is actually like almost affordable.
Huh.
So something to keep in mind.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of good stuff. But then we did that. We walked downtown. We saw a bunch of architecture. We hit up a bunch of places. We did that tiki bar you mentioned, Andrew.
Yes, Mutiny.
That was jam packed when we got there.
Yeah, it's like the new trendy place.
So that's the big problem I had was that we got there and I was like, oh, you guys must have had people call off, and she's like, no, we only have 3 people who work here on a Saturday night. I'm like, what? What? I'm like, because like easily they need 3 bartenders and 2 wait staff. And
Well,
right
and
now
if you
they
think
have.
about it, tiki drinks are usually a little bit more complicated than people aren't showing up and be like, give me a beer, give me a rum and coke. Like everyone's ordering fancy cocktails that's
in
going to
mugs.
take a few minutes to make and serve.
Yeah, so like they definitely need 3 bartenders and 2 wait staff with 1 wait staff cleaning, rotating with someone cleaning dishes. Because then that'd be perfect ops, I think. But like it was just crazy. But yeah, it was good. It was a different type of tiki bar that I'm used to, because there's not as heavy rum focus, if you kind of get my drift on that. A lot of whiskeys, a lot of gins, drinks, but they were good. They like lighting stuff on fire there, and by that I don't mean like 151 and sugar cubes. I mean like literally lighting like pieces of cinnamon and rosemary on fire.
when I went there a couple of weeks ago and they brought out my drink, I was like, I didn't get anything with like 151, and the guy's like bending down to like light it. I was like, what is he going to light? He like lit like a cinnamon like incense stick.
Yeah.
Like it was neat, but I was like, oh, that's different.
Yeah, so that was weird. Definitely was a great thing for my my chronic sinus issues and allergies, but that's besides the point. Yeah, we did a bunch of restaurants. Sunday we went to the Henry Ford Innovation Museum, or Museum of Innovation. I forget what it's called exactly. That was a blast. That was a really cool experience. A bunch of entertainment there.
Did you make it outside to? I'm guessing not with the weather. Greenfield Village.
No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and that's like to tie back into the theme parks. 'Cause, like that's probably like the closest theme park out there that like it's basically a theme park, just doesn't have rides. So that's why like I don't think a lot of people in like our like circles talk about that. But very history focused. There's a really great train that runs around it. But definitely something next time when you're there when it's warmer, check that out. But I like that's one of those things that like it's one of those parks that like is up there in like a theme park, very, very, very well done. But just since it doesn't really have any ride, and there's like a wave swinger, I think, but since there's not any like rides, like it just doesn't get on the radar of like theme park fans.
Yeah, sort of like how Colonial Williamsburg's a theme park, but it's
exactly
not really, it's not looked at it like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So we did that. We went to we got some Middle Eastern food, hung out, had a bunch of good stuff. Yeah, I had a blast. Any thoughts on your ends, Alan?
All I want to say is that, Joe, is Detroit terrifying?
No, it's not. I was not. We walked downtown. We were not shot at.
Not only were we not shot at, like we tried to go to Grand Trunk, and I was like, we're gonna go to Grand Trunk. First, we went to the Renaissance Center, which just had its new showroom in the first floor, the GM showroom redone, and that was actually really cool. It's got this like wraparound LED screen and like a turntable of vehicles, and then of course there's the vehicles that are on the floor that you can go check out and actually sit in.
And turn them up and put on a Hip Hop Nation on Sirius XM and just blare the music.
Especially what was that car? It was like a $108,000. Was that the Corvette?
I think it was. That was really nice.
Yeah, it was the Corvette. It was like we just all sat in the IMSA Corvette and just like turned up the volume on. Oh no! It was a Cadillac CTS. That's what it was.
Okay, yeah.
That's awesome.
Seriously expensive. Anyways, so we walked from there, and I'm like, I told him, we'll go see the Spirit of Detroit statue, and then we'll go to Grand Trunk, which is not far away from the Renaissance Center in the middle of downtown. And I know Andrew knows where this is, so we go there, and packed, like literally just bodies, like everywhere, just filled.
And that's such a good bar too.
So we're like, okay, so that didn't work. Then like the whiskey lounge next to it, like the door was locked. So we couldn't even get in, but it looked like it was packed. Then we went to another bar. That place was packed. Then we went to another bar. Like we walked in, we're like, can we get a table? And they're like, yeah, that's an hour and a half wait. We're like, okay, yeah, that's not going to happen. So we ended up at there was like a tent set up over by where they have the ice skating rink.
Yeah, Campus Martius.
Yeah, Campus Mars. And it was really nice inside, and
it
finally found seats.
It was a massive tent that could probably fit. It fit like 5 or 6 living room setups, like miniature living room setups, and then a bunch of like long tables, like maybe a dozen long tables, with a giant bar at the back with a projection screen, and they had like warm drinks and they had beer on tap and some food, like light food items. But it was a massive tent. We were just sitting in the middle of downtown Detroit. It was beautiful inside. They all had these fake fireplaces and Christmas decorations up. And we were just like, what is this place? It just was there.
And people, it's so funny to hear people be like, oh my God, I hear Detroit is so terrifying. It's so scary. No, it's not. Not anymore.
I did very similar to what you guys did, like bar crawl, food crawl around the town a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, I mean, I try to do that every year when I go home over the holidays. And every year I'm just like, man, this place just gets cooler and cooler. You pair it with you do it during the summer, you pair it with a game at Comerica Park, or like I said, if you like themed entertainment in the Colonial Williamsburg vein, Greenfield Village is great. The Detroit Zoo is fantastic. Like that is they've essentially, like when I grew up, it was like your average zoo, but then like from like the mid to late 90s onwards, every 3 or 4 years they've been kind of going through and replacing each like major exhibit. Like they went and did the polar bears, incredible polar bears, just did like the biggest penguin exhibit in the world or something, and amphibian. So like they've been going through and replacing each one of their main exhibits, and I think it's up there as one of the better zoos in the country. So
yeah, I would say, Joe, you have to come back for Greenfield Village and the zoo, and then all the places we didn't get to eat at. We stopped at we didn't go to the Rusted Crow at all, which is unfortunate. We did go to Punch Bowl Social, which was really good.
Oh yeah, that's a really cool. That's a cool hangout. It gets really busy, but cool hangout.
Yeah,
you didn't go to a show. We didn't go to El Club. We didn't go to St. Andrews. We didn't go to the Magic Stick.
Oh, Magic Stick. They have that pizza place in front of the Magic Stick.
Yeah, and then the bowling alley too.
Yeah,
that place is freaking awesome. I love Magic Stick. So there's all these. You didn't get to see the Fox Theater. You have to return. So it's important. This is imperative at some point. Return.
It sounds good.
Anyways, Detroit, it's awesome. People should go there. It's not scary.
We swear.
Man, this is quite the podcast. Let's just review. We talked about the new football. Then we switched into how Six Flags is better than Cedar Fair, and now we're talking about how Detroit is the tourist destination. No one's going to take this thing serious anymore.
It's the new Portland. I don't care if you don't believe me. It's true.
I definitely. It was actually rated in like Travel and Leisure or some like major publication as like the city to visit in 2018. But
it's dope. It's dope. If you aren't going to Detroit, like, what are you even doing right now? You can party.
To be fair, it is, if you want to tie it back to theme parks, Detroit Airport is just a little under 2 hours to Cedar Point. So if you can't find that cheap airfare in Cleveland Airport's an hour to Cedar Point. So make a little extra weekend out of it and check out Detroit one time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, send me an email. Let me know. I'll show up. I'm not scared.
Exactly. There we go. Our sign off. I'm not scared.
Yeah, there's lots of cool neighborhoods. Anyways, yeah. So we got questions.
Yes, we do. Our first question comes from the legend in the Loop the Legend. He asks us rank the very mediocre new for 2018 Orlando attraction class. We have Fast and Furious, we have Toy Story Land, and we have Infinity Falls.
I mean,
it's fun
for me, I'm probably going to put while I think Infinity Falls is probably going to be better as an overall ride than Fast and the Furious, I don't like water rides. And I don't know if it's ever going to open because it's Intamin. So I want to say at bottom of my mediocre list, it would have to be Infinity Falls, then probably Fast and the Furious, and then Toy Story, just because, hey, there's a coaster there. It's mock. So, even though it looks slow, it could be decent. And Toy Story is a little bit more fun than Fast and the Furious. So it's a very close call all around in my eyes.
I'm going to go. So, first of all, Fun Spot's not getting anything.
Doesn't sound like it.
How about Legoland?
Legoland's no, but the zoo in Tampa is getting a log flume.
So, number one is the zoo in Tampa's new log flume.
That you found out about 10 seconds ago.
Yeah, literally just now. Is the Andretti go-karts, are they getting an SBF spinning coaster?
No, I'm sure it's only a matter of time. That place is like half empty on the inside. So there's plenty of space there.
Whoever gets an SBF spinning kids coaster will be number 3 on the list behind Toy Story Land. I guess I have to go Infinity Falls 4th and then Fast and the Furious dead last. Like I can't pretend to care about Fast and the Furious. I really can't. I'm sorry to everybody.
But
I've been on so many tunnel simulators, and I liked exactly one of them, which was at Bollywood. That one was kind of fun, possibly because it was at Bollywood, and it also had like an Indian dude that I was in a high-speed chase with in Dubai that was threatening to kill me. Like, that was kind of cool. So that was, interesting. This I don't see having the same appeal to me because it's characters I don't really care about from a series I'm not that interested in. Infinity Falls, like, I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, it's like there's nothing about it that I've seen thus far that makes me believe it's going to be like a next level ride of that ilk. Like, it's going to be better than Popeyes or better than the Phantasialand Rapids ride or better than
even Cali River Rapids. I mean, I would say in Orlando right there, when you have Cali River Rapids 4 miles one way and Popeyes 4 miles the other way, I mean, those are two of the better Rapids rides. Yeah, Phantasialand has a great one, but when you're talking U.S., those are probably among two of the best in the U.S. So you're building something that your competition already has, and you're not doing it better than them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I get that you're trying to be the locals park, but like the way to be the locals park is to give somebody something different,
or give them something to do. My problem with that is, Orlando gets really hot during the summer, but I can tell you as a local, we're all freezing right now. I won't even tell you how warm it is because you'd laugh, but. I mean, there's no way I would go on a water ride anytime within the last month. This past weekend, we hit like 80 for a few hours one day. But I mean, really, if you're trying to be a locals park, building something that locals will only want to ride 6-7 months out of the year versus, a Mako or something that every day people could ride it.
Yeah, I don't get it. It's not, it's whatever. The ride that doesn't exist, that hasn't even been announced. It could go if Magic was Magical Midway. Is that what it's called? If they got an SPF spinning coaster, that would be number 3. Like, I don't care. Like, it would be a credit, and maybe it would cost me like less than $10, and I'd be really excited with that. Well, my number 2 was Toy Story Land, which, my opinion on Toy Story Land is I'm not quite as negative about it as Weenie is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he is all over.
Yeah.
All over it, which is hilarious because I like to dogpile on that because then people get really mad. And, if there's anything that I can do right now that entertains me, it's make people mad on the internet. So, I don't think it's like it's not like a tragedy that's being built. Like, to me, it's a crappy park. And right now, like, it has good rides. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I really think that Tower of Terror is a great ride. And
it'd be like if the Magic Kingdom only had Pirates, Splash Mountain, and Big Thunder. When the Haunted Mansion.
Like if Magic Kingdom had Pirates, what's middling? Like a couple things that, like, if they had Pirates,
Jungle Cruise,
Christ, Buzz Lightyear, and the Barnstormer, like.
Seven Dwarfs Mine Train.
I know that Rock and Roller Coaster is better than Barnstormer, but they're both Vekoma, so we're just going
close enough.
or Seven Doors Mine Train. Let's say that.
Yeah.
They have Seven Doors Mine Train. I'll spot them that one. If that was Magic Kingdom, like we would all crap on it constantly. Like, we would hate that park. Everybody would.
Yeah.
Who likes this park? Nobody likes this. That's like my attitude with Toy Story Land is, if you're going to build like some okay-ish rides for kids, just buy like a whole pile of Zamperla kids rides. Yeah, the gearboxes suck and the rides will break down and whatever, but at least you'll have 10 or 12 rides instead of 2. Where you have a really expensive Mack launch coaster that looks. I know you're trying to tell us it's not going to be so bad, Joe. I know that you are. I know you're trying to apologize for it. I know you're saying it'll be faster when it's on, but that's what it is.
I'll just keep riding and going. It could have been Manta at SeaWorld.
Yeah, exactly. Like
San Diego.
Like you can't even go as far. Like obviously it was never going to be Blue Fire.
No,
right?
no.
Like you were never expecting that, but like it could have been so much more. And I watched like the footage, like the video of the concept video of it, and I compared it to like what the test video looked like, and they're basically the same. And I realized that's the ride, and like that's what you got. You guys got like a giant launched wacky worm. So have fun with that, Orlando. And then what I said was number 1, I forget. I don't remember.
The log flume in Lowry Park Zoo.
I know nothing about it, but it's gonna be the best.
For me, I would definitely say Voodoo Donuts is number 1.
That's a good choice. It's a good pick.
Yeah, that's the dark horse right there. I'd probably say Toy Story Land, just because it has a coaster, is number 2.
Yeah.
No matter how bad it's going to be, because I know I'm going to be like, oh, it's not too bad, and then I ride it and I get off it. I'm like, this is a forceless piece of shit, or something like that. I'm just like crossed arms, like the angry lady who's like riding Splash Mountain photo.
But Joe, the forceless piece of shit that cost $80 million.
Oh
was
yeah.
intended to be that way.
It would have been better.
Perfect.
It would have been better if Disney took the money that they did to build that and just gave it to me on a check. Like, here, Joe, here's your $2.53 for visiting Hollywood Studios. After that, I would say probably Infinity Falls, then Fast and the Furious, but I don't see anything happening with Infinity Falls, so I don't know. Is it going to open this year? Is it going to open the fall? I have no idea. Well, like they haven't done any work on it.
No, yeah, it's still dirty. Like the latest photo I saw like the other day is like a couple of things of concrete poured, but again, I go back to it's an Intamin, so whenever they say it's going to open, you got to add at least 2 or 3 months. Then it'll operate for about 2 weeks and then be closed for another 2 months. And so at this point, I mean, you're looking at October. I'm still saying I don't think it will be open to the public before Labor Day, which at that point, yeah. I mean, I know it's still 90 degrees in Florida all September and October.
You lost everybody.
You lost everyone, and no one goes to SeaWorld in September. And by that time, you can't open your new water ride during your Christmas event like that. That's not going to work.
This is literally what happened with Falcon's Fury. Like they were like, well, we lost the whole second quarter, so that didn't help at all. Yeah. So that's take number 1. Take number 2 is I can't wait for the video like Falcon's Fury where it goes on its first test ride and then like the boat just sheds like 87 parts and sinks immediately. Just like Falcon's Fury would just like threw pistons and pieces of hydraulics
and like screeched really loud.
Yeah.
And then number 3 is I shoot forward to SeaWorld Orlando presented by Chimalong circa 2022 book. And somebody goes, when is Infinity Falls going to open? I'm sorry, there's no Infinity Falls. It was just never going to happen.
Take 4, even though it's somehow a River Rapids ride, Intamin has to retrack it somehow for some odd reason.
Yeah, it's going to be like Shoot the Rapids, where like they had to get new boats, or what was it? Or the boats they couldn't put people in the last row of it. So you're going to have SeaWorld, and like they'll be like, yeah, it's a 5-person raft. We only can put 3 people in it.
It's a 6-person raft, and we can only do half capacity.
I mean, it's sad that we joke about this, but like when they did put the boats in on Shoot the Rapids the first time, they sunk immediately.
Yeah.
And they did
yeah.
like
oh boy.
So So new for never, Infinity Falls, because they'll just not pay for it and it just won't happen.
When's it opening? In Infinity. That's when. That's
Yeah,
that's the name. Yeah, it's in the name.
I like that. And I guess that's a good segue to the next question here is Steel Vengeance or Twisted Timbers?
and that's from Lane.
Yeah.
What's up, Lane?
Man, that's a. I mean, isn't everyone going to say Steel Vengeance? But
Yeah.
no, I mean,
no.
You don't come on.
He's not even
Steel
letting you say it.
No. I definitely think Steel Vengeance is going to be the better ride, but I feel like Twisted Timbers is getting overshadowed by, like, if you haven't seen, they just released the images of the cars today, and man, those look badass. But I think Twisted Timbers will surprise people. Like I think most people think it's going to be like Mystic Steel Vengeance, like way up here, and then Twisted Timbers way down here. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think.
I think Twisted Timbers is going to be really good. I don't know if it's going to be as good as Wicked Cyclone or some of the other ones. I'm a little concerned after the rides that everyone started to have, like starting last year. Maybe it was this year on Storm Chaser.
Yep.
Where everyone was like, oh, they changed the wheel compound to make it go as fast as humanly possible, and now it's incredibly painful.
Yeah, no, that's I only wrote it this year, and I was like, that's a cool ride, but by the end of the ride, I was like, that hurt, and that's my one worry about like Steel Vengeance is, I'm like
it's that for so long.
That's yes, you know, Storm Chaser is pretty short. Where I wrote it a few times, like, okay, I can put up with the pain for the last like 20 seconds, but I'm just having this fear that Steel Vengeance. And, you know, I guess to the same extent, Twisted Timbers, but Steel Vengeance being so long, you're going to hit that mid-course break, and you're going to be like, damn, my legs hurt. Ah, crap, we still got like 10 more airtime hills to go, which is great. But that's why I love Iron Rattler, because it has different restraints. But that's my worry is I do not like the RMC restraints. And I'm like, RMC restraints and airtime don't go well together, even though RMC and airtime go really well together.
Yeah, I got to go with Steel Vengeance as being better. I don't think that Twisted Timbers is going to be.
No, it's not going to be better.
It's not that it's going to be not competitive. I guess it's going to be one of those rides like Joker at Discovery Kingdom and probably the new Cyclone at Georgia, where it's kind of in the middle of the pack. At this point, like there'll be like 12 or 15 RMCs by the end of the year. So, just like when B&M started to build lots of inverted coasters and really, just built a ton of stuff. It's like, there's going to be a couple rides like Patriot.
There's some fillers.
Or Nemesis Inferno that are out there that people are like, yeah, it's good, but it's not that great.
So what's your top RMC right now that you've been on?
I would say probably my favorite RMC. I almost hate to say it's Wicked Cyclone because I like the original Cyclone so much. And that's like what I grew up with was the Riverside Cyclone. I really liked Wicked Cyclone. Shocking amount. And I also really like Outlaw Run a lot. And I also really like Lightning. If I had to pick one of those three to ride tomorrow, I'd probably pick Wicked Cyclone, in all honesty.
Interesting. Joe, have you been on an RMC yet?
No, I have not.
Ah, man.
Yeah.
We gotta get you on. We gotta get you on Lightning Ride when that ride opens.
Oh, I know. Another Infinity opening.
Yeah.
All right. Next question
is also from Lane. He asks, "How good is hang time going to be?"
Really, it's going to be really good.
This is I think the other sleeper hit.
I think it's.
I got to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, you go ahead first.
I was just going to say, I rode Hydrus this past year on the Jersey Shore. It was a lap bar only Gerstlauer. So I think a lot of people who might have, a lot of people ride Mystery Mine and go, ooh, Gerstlauer. And, the restraints are really bad. But, man, lap bar only on a Hydrus, that was such a great ride. And, this is twice as tall, So I think it's going to be crazy lap bar only. I'm pumped for it. I think this is going to be like the sleeper hit. Everyone's like, it's awesome.
The best coasters in Southern California right now are what? We got Colossus.
Yep.
We got is Full Throttle. I haven't even been on it yet, but would that be somewhere in that mix, like the top 5?
It's unique. I would say so. For me, it would be if we're talking Magic Mountain, it's X2 Full Throttle Twisted Colossus.
Okay, and then I'm always a big fan of Tatsu.
Yep.
Ghost Rider's a really good ride. I know Apocalypse just got retracked.
Yay! I love Apocalypse.
So apparently it's actually really rideable right now.
Yay!
So if you want to go ride Apocalypse and have it fun, plus go on a really good dark ride, go to Magic Mountain.
You can go any day of the year.
Yeah, any day of the year. It's open 365 now. It's amazing.
As long as it's not too cold or raining.
And there are PTCs going on to the Giant Dipper at Belmont. There's your big news story for everybody else. PTCs. We're breaking it right now. I'm doing it because I can. It just happened.
That's actually okay. So Belmont down in San Diego.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pronounced Santiago. It's pronounced Santiago, but but
that's gonna be really good for that ride because those new heavier trains are gonna make it go fast. But anyways, I'd say like the top 5. You're probably looking at like Tatsu, Colossus, Ghost Rider,
Accelerator.
Maybe if it's open. I think.
I was gonna say it's currently
it's been close to like 6 months. X2, if you're into that, it's kind of like the BDSM of roller coasters.
Yeah.
So if you're into it, like wow, that's exciting stuff. You have to go to like the Close Encounters section of Craigslist to try and find X2. But I really think that this ride, Hang Time, is going to fit in like in the top end of those rides. Like Caracho at Tripsdrill was freaking awesome. It was super, super duper good. I've been on I went on Madagascar's Mad Pursuit, which is another launched one. It has no inversions, but it's a lap bar Gerstlauer Eurofighter, and it was freaking awesome. They're building just super good rides right now. Like their rides, like one after another, are awesome. And the holding brake, the Beyond Vertical Drop, 5 inversions, it's going to have a really good mix of forces and negative Gs.
And then you throw the lighting package, which will be awesome.
It's going to easily be the best coaster, other than maybe Ghost Rider, in the Valley, in Orange County. And I mean, like not that there's a huge amount of competition. Like there's obviously there's Disney, which has some stuff, but then you've also got like Adventure City.
Yeah, Rewind Racers. Come on.
Rewind Racers. Scandia Screamer is also like a top 10 coaster. Not top 5 to 7. So I'm going to throw that one in. If you haven't been on Scandia Screamer, that thing is insane. You'll fear for your life the whole time, but man, that's crazy. It's so good. It's going to be up in that upper tier. It's going to be, like you said, I think it's going to be like a quiet kind of, not quiet, but like I think once people get on it, like there's going to be a lot of people being like, whoa. Maybe not so much the Disney fans going to Knott's right now because like it's not their type of ride, but for people that have slightly higher tolerance for excitement in their lives, like it's gonna be a winner.
Cool. These next 2 questions are Universal related, so clearly they're not going to listen to these questions because we just talked about Six Flags, Cedar Fair, and RMC for an hour and a half.
And Detroit,
and
XFL.
And the XFL. Jonathan Heffley asks, rebuild the entrance area at UCF, or is it fine as is?
I think it's fine.
The entrance area at UCF, I don't know anything about.
No, USF, sorry. UCF, sorry. USF.
The unofficial national champions.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah. But you know what? Whatever. I was like crapping on that earlier because again, like making people mad on the internet's fun. Rebuild the entrance area past the gates. That's fine. You know what? I don't think it really makes a difference. I'll be honest with you. Do you? Like what exactly are they going to change that's going to make it significantly better? Like, I guess like they'd regain some land that they're not going to use because it's going to lead directly into shops, and that's the way everything is. So I don't really see any value in changing. Unless you're going to build a B&M hypercoaster, which is what you should have done.
Yeah. I mean, there's some stuff they can declutter, like get rid of that Blue Man statue thing and clean up the area, but otherwise there's not much you can really do. I mean, you're kind of trapped with what's there unless you gut a bunch of stuff, so yeah.
There's a ton of China, several thousand miles through the core of the earth.
Exactly. Yeah,
and then you gain a whole lot more space.
Yeah.
Most of it vertical. You can build some amazing rides around that tunnel, and I think it would be dope. I don't know if it actually leads to China. It may lead into the middle of the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
Maybe on the other side you'll find that Malaysian Airlines flight.
Too soon? I don't know. Too soon.
It's been a year. Anyways, next question.
It's been like 4 years. 3 or 4 years, man.
Yeah, that's too bad. That's crazy. But
Yeah.
Anyways.
Next, our last questions come from our friends at neozaz.com. They do the Catacombs, the Halloween Horror Nights podcast. Give that a listen. Their question is, what's your favorite Twisted Tater flavor at Universal Orlando Mardi Gras? Hyde?
Oh man, I don't remember the flavors. I just remember them being really good. And this question had just reminded me that, man, Mardi Gras is just a week away.
Yep.
I don't have a Universal Pass right now. I was waiting for the Mardi Gras promotion and the lineup, which is pretty solid. So I'm going to be going. I'll be enjoying some Twisted Taters here in the next week or two.
I don't remember what the flavors are either, because I only have them at Halloween Horror Nights, and I had them once.
Yeah, so, I seem to always remember.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. It's like the barbecue spice flavor.
Sour cream and onion, I think, is one of them. I want to say.
It's so good.
Yeah, those are pretty delicious.
Human blood. That was a good one. The one that tastes like pain. I like pain.
Yeah, they accurately recreated pain, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's like they sprinkle it with thumbtacks.
Yeah. Oh, okay, got it. There we go.
It's incredible. No, I've never actually been to Universal Orlando Mardi Gras, though. This year's lineup of acts, consisting almost entirely of Merzbow, and Merzbow with Foreigner, did appeal to me.
That was a great joke.
Nobody got it. It's okay. It's all right. Okay, Internet, I see you.
Oh, man. Anyway.
Anything else?
Oh, what were we going to say, Andrew?
That wasn't me.
Oh, never mind.
Hi.
Well, we're done now. That was 2 hours. I thought it'd be an hour podcast, but instead we spent an hour talking about.
You know. Anytime you get Ellen and I talking about parks, it's not going to be an hour podcast.
That's true. So, Andrew, where can we find you online at?
I am online at on Twitter at online hide, and I do the occasional video for In the Loop. So plug their little YouTube channel over there. I got a couple of videos up there recently of travels from the past year. So kind of my two main spots.
Cool, and and you did the Kings Island video too.
Yeah,
which is nice.
Yeah, where it was snowing. So that was when we showed up to Kings Island. There was no snow on the ground. By the time we left, there was a couple inches, and that was in like 2 hours. That was cool. And then video just posted like today or a couple days ago, roller coaster restaurant, like where your food's served to you via roller coaster. And going back like 2 hours ago to Voodoo Donuts, like there's anything I think City Walk should add, it's this thing, like it'd be a moneymaker, you know?
Is that from Europa that you went to?
It's the same thing as Europa, but it was in Vina Prater.
Okay.
So, but it's the exact same thing by the same company. But man, I think if they put one of those things at City Walk, that's what City Walk needs.
Yeah, those are actually super dope if you've never seen one.
Yeah.
Alan, where can we find you and your avant-garde humor at?
At Gods on Safari on Twitter, and occasionally posting on Parkscope and elsewhere on the magic of the internet.
Cool. You can find me at Parkscope Joe. You can find all of us at Parkscope. You know what to do. Go to parkscope.net. Give us reviews. All that fun stuff. So on behalf of everyone, I need to go to bed. Kungaloosh, love everybody, hate your thing, blah, blah, blah. We'll see you guys next time.